An ABC investigation has found Australian Army snipers deployed to Iraq in 2016 have developed permanent brain injuries from exposure to rifle fire. 3 former soldiers have spoken about the devastating toll on their lives, from symptoms including memory loss, severe headaches and personality changes. The men were given Iranian-made replica rifles to train Iraqi soldiers and fired hundreds of powerful ammunition rounds each day, which they say was over the accepted safety limits. The Defence Department has declined to respond to questions about what safety measures were in place at the time. The federal government is yet to commit to a brain blast injury program recommended by the Veteran Suicide Royal Commission. Now, our National Health reporter Elise Worthington joins us now. Elise, what did these snipers tell you about what happened to them in Iraq?
So they went over as part of a program to train local Iraqis to prepare them for the Battle of Mosul. Now, the sniper's job was to get them up to speed using these weapons, a 50 calibre sniper rifle, which was actually a replica of a European rifle they usually or sometimes used. So it had a different muzzle on the end. Instead of projecting the blast overpressure away from the shooter, it brought it back towards the shooter and at an angle. So exactly where the Australians were positioned during training. Now, these men told me after shooting hundreds of rounds a day, or being right next to the Iraqis shooting these rounds every day, they started to experience a range of strange symptoms. So each shot, the overpressure generated by these heavy weapons is, they said, like having a punch in the face, essentially. Now, after all these rounds, and for weeks on end, they started getting strange symptoms. They had nausea, headaches, dizziness, struggled to walk in a way that they described as being almost punch drunk. And then they started to get really severe nosebleeds, so blood exploding over the weapons as soon as they shot them. Now, this was real cause for concern, and they went to talk to medics about what was going on, and essentially they were told they were having these mini concussions and it was causing them to be punch drunk.
And what about when they got home? What were the symptoms then?
So really devastating. These men, when they were over there in 2016, were only in their 20s, their early 20s, some of them. Now they're only in their 30s, and they described a really serious pattern of memory loss. One told me that he had an episode where he was in his kitchen talking to his wife and suddenly had no idea who he was, who she was, or where he was. Another one described that his wife would come home and he'd see her in the house and be shocked that she hadn't said hi to him, but they'd had a whole conversation 5 minutes earlier that he had no recollection of. So they have really severe memory loss, and 2 of them have been diagnosed with brain injuries, and the only cause that could be seen is this intense exposure to blast that they had when they were overseas. They also had personality changes, like they were quick to anger and really struggling with that. So they've had really severe symptoms from this, and they're still trying to get help for those.
Now, what does research show about this connection between blast exposure and brain injury? So
what scientists are now finding is that the blast overpressure that's generated when a weapon is fired can have an impact on the delicate brain tissue and cause scarring and microscopic damage to the brain that can have these long-term symptoms. It can take years to manifest, and there's still not enough known about exactly what levels of exposure in each individual can cause these ongoing symptoms, or exactly what treatments are available. But they're doing more research to try and get to the bottom of this, including looking at brains donated by Australian veterans to the Australian Veterans Brain Bank, to try and find out what more can be done to prevent this kind of damage occurring.
And what does Defence say about this?
So Defence didn't answer any of our questions directly about what the safety limits were that were in place at the time and whether they were breached, or what safety limits are in place now. But I can say from speaking to dozens and dozens of veterans now over many months, we know that Defence is taking action. They are imposing some safety limits, but veteran advocates say that that's not enough. There needs to be transparency and independent oversight to ensure that soldiers are protected, and that those who have already been injured can get the help that they need to get better.